Consciousness, a worldwide web event.
We have Adam from Redmond, Washington on the phone with a question.
Yes, hello?
Oh, on the phone. Hi.
Hi there.
Hi, Adam.
Hi, thank you so much, both of you.
I feel a little like Larry King. Is the caller there? A little like Larry King. Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, well, I used your online study group to create a couple groups out here, which I've called Embracing Silence. And for the purpose of joining together for meditation and study and discussion and to create a field of presence and share with others in that. And I'm curious, what role do you see community or joining with others with the intention of sharing this consciousness playing in the flowering of human consciousness?
Good question.
Yes, it's very important. And of course, what's happening here tonight is part of that also, because it is a joining on a level that we haven't seen before. Mm-hmm. It's the arising presence. You can access it much more easily as part of a larger community or group of people. So to have in your home, to have a group of people who practice being present, perhaps listen to a spiritual talk or have a little reading, mm-hmm. enter stillness, be present, is extremely helpful, because an energy field is generated mm-hmm. when people come together and enter the state of presence together. So, and this is happening here also, although people are not physically together, mm-hmm. and yet there is an energy field now that is generated all over the planet of presence, a different level of consciousness being generated. So it's extremely helpful to join with others. Also, it needs to be said, not to become dependent on any group. It is still your responsibility to bring this new consciousness into everyday life. Whenever you go about your business, in your family.
Once you become dependent upon the group, then you've now...
Then you always need to go back to the group, and you mm-hmm. cannot live presence in your daily life. Mm-hmm. So the important thing is, yes, go to the group to generate more presence, and then your responsibility is to live it in your everyday life, where most of the time, perhaps, you will not yet be surrounded by people who are present. You will be surrounded by the old egoic consciousness. Mm-hmm. So this is the challenge for everybody now who is awakening, that yes, more and more people are beginning to awaken, and yet there's still vast numbers of people on the planet who are not.
But I was going to say that when Ryan from Borders was speaking to us, and he was saying, you know, the need to be more positive, and there's all this negative energy in the world. Look, we have 700 and some thousand of us all gathered here this evening, which is a huge positive force.
Yes.
In creating the shift.
Yes.
And it's a different kind of community.
Yes.
Like we've never seen or experienced before.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yes. And then, of course, another kind of community is generated through the internet now, and all these things that I don't know much about, but it's happening. Mm-hmm. So how people communicate with each other. And again, people are being linked in different ways with each other.
This is the arising of a new consciousness that he speaks about, Adam.
Well, it certainly is, and it's very pleasurable to spend time with others and sharing this consciousness. You know, like you said, when you were under the tree and you felt that oneness and that majesty. Well, imagine if you had someone sitting there next to you to share that experience with. I think it makes it even that much more sacred.
I did have my two dogs, Luke and Layla, were there.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Thanks, Adam.
What a sacred moment. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Adam. That's Adam from Redmond, Washington. Let's see some of the questions that you're sending us now. Ooh, this is cool. On email. Okay, we're going to check the computer screen here. Ta-da. Questions are? Nothing's there. Nothing's there. So I'll keep talking. One of the things that really struck us was so many people responded to this. Page 13. You don't become good by trying to be good. You don't become good by trying to be good.
And carry on.
Okay.
There's more to that sentence.
Yes, there is. I must go to page 13 to find it. You don't become good by trying to be good, but by finding the goodness that is already within you and allowing that goodness to emerge. But it can only emerge if something fundamental changes in your state of consciousness.
Yes. So what that means, if nothing changes in your state of consciousness, the ego has many ideas. It says, I want to be a spiritual person. I want to be recognized as a spiritual person. I want to be more spiritual than all these people. And I'm definitely more spiritual than you. So the ego has all kinds of ideas of what it wants to be. It might even say, yes, I want to be good, because it wants to have a better image of itself. But on that level, by the essential dysfunction of the ego is still operating. So this is why we have the phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Because no matter how good your intentions are, when you're still trapped in the ego, it will always take you into conflict, eventually. So there are people...
That's why I was saying to Ryan, you can't just think positively.
No,
such thing.
It's not enough. You have to go deeper.
You can think positively, but it is not enough, because eventually something negative will come along to challenge the positive.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So you must...
It's the realm of opposites.
Yes.
So you have to go deeper beyond the realm of opposites where there's good and bad, and reach a place within yourself that is unconditioned, that is what I sometimes call the formless consciousness,
what I call spirit.
Expressed beautifully in the Old Testament, in the little saying, be still and know that I am God. And that's in the Old Testament. It contains the entire wisdom of religion in those few words. Be still, meaning go to that place where the mind is no longer operating, where you are just conscious without thinking. And that is the level where the eternal resides. So the eternal, the formless, the spirit, is the essence of every human being. No matter how insane or conflict-ridden they seem to appear on the surface, within every human being, that remains untouched. There's nothing that anybody could have done to you, or nothing that you could have done to others to destroy that.
It's always there.
It's always there, and that is the grace of being here. And no matter how much madness there has been in your life, that remains untouched. So it's getting in touch with that deepest place within, and you can only do that by becoming still.
Yes.
Now, becoming still does not mean that you go to sleep. It means you're actually more alert than when you're thinking. You have to invite the stillness into your life as much as possible.
That's why I loved your book, Stillness Speaks. It's only that small, but every page is a gem.
Yes.
Okay. And also, it's what I was saying earlier, that in order to feel that, the way you feel that, for everybody who's listening to us now, the way you begin to feel that is to look at nature. If you were to go out and just be with a tree, and I don't mean hug a tree. We're not talking about now you got to go hug a tree and eat granola. But if you were just to be with anything in nature, I like trees because they're so majestic, they're so powerful and visual. And if you're with it for a time, you start to sense the presence of it, the stillness of it, and begin to recognize that stillness within yourself.
Yes. So what you sense in the tree is also in you.
And it's always in the tree,
Yes.
Even when the wind is blowing and there's a storm.
Yes.
Yes.
And that is also a sacredness that is there in the tree. Now our world doesn't know much. It's sacred. It has become an abstract concept. Nobody seems to know what sacredness is, but until you can feel it.
Until you can feel it.
When you feel, then you don't need a definition. People ask, please define what sacred is. You don't need a definition of what sacred is, because sacred is the essence of who you are. So it's sensing that, and you can sense it when you're still enough. You sense it in the tree.
Now, isn't it interesting that you first came to recognize this when you were about to kill yourself?
Yes. Yes. Sometimes you have to reach a limit. Humans have to reach a limit. The human species as a whole is reaching that limit, but also on a personal level, sometimes people have to be pushed to the limit. My ego was so obstinate and my pain body was so strong, I had to be pushed to the limit before it cracked open.
Well, before we go any further, share that moment that you talk about in the beginning of Power of Now, when you were about to kill yourself.
Yes.
Feeling so much pain.
Dreadful suffering at night. I would often wake up in extreme feeling of dread and fear, consumed by dread and fear. The whole world seemed alien. And I saw the thought one night, I woke up again, the thought came, I can't live with myself any longer. I just can't live with myself any longer. It's so painful. And that thought repeated itself a few times, and then suddenly something happened inside me, and I looked at the thought. That was, of course, awareness. I didn't know that at the time what it was. I became aware of the thought, and I said, I cannot live with myself. That's strange. So there must be I, and there must be myself. Am I one or two? I seem to be two. Because if I can't live with myself, there must be two of me.
Well, and everybody has felt that, not to kill themselves, but everybody has felt or heard, or you heard you say to yourself, I said to myself.
Yes.
I said to myself.
Yes, and of course the entire, what we call the voice in the head, we could also call it self-talk, where you talk to yourself, and most people address themselves as you. So the voice says, you shouldn't have done that, or you should better, or
Yes.
So there's a separation inside human beings, which is the essence of ego.
Right.
That here's an image of who I think I am, and then there's a me, and they get mixed up together.
Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted you with that thought, though, but you getting ready to kill yourself, said, I can't live with myself any longer.
Yes.
Said that several times in your mind.
And then I became aware of the structure of the sentence, and said, if that's the case, then who is the self that I cannot live with, and who am I?
Wow.
And at that moment, a separation happened completely between the essential I, which is the essential consciousness that I am beyond past and future, the eternal stillness, but awake stillness, and all my thought processes, which were ego, it was all my thought processes that had created the dreadful suffering. The mind-created entity, the unhappy me, was continuously fed by my thinking. It consisted of thinking, a stream of thinking.
So did you just decide that night, I guess I'll wait to see if I will kill myself?
No,
Yeah.
It was a kind of spiritual suicide. So the ego died. Instead of me having to jump off a bridge, fortunately, the ego died. The ego dissolved. The ego as the unobserved mind dissolved.
The ego.
The false self, the me, the unhappy story.
Oh, got it.
Me as the unhappy, my identity as me and my unhappy story. Died, dissolved, because the I behind it suddenly woke up and said, who is that self that I can't live with? And when you fully look at that self, it actually dissolves, because it cannot survive in the light of intense consciousness.
Wow.
And so the next morning I woke up and I didn't know, I thought, that was strange, what happened? Well, there was still, I felt myself.
Were you drinking?
No drinking, no drugs.
No drugs.
No acid.
You had a couple sips of something. Yeah.
Nothing, it just happened, and I felt like being drawn into a kind of vortex then, and then I went to sleep, and the last thing I felt, there was still some fear. A voice said, don't resist, or resist nothing. Resist nothing, don't resist nothing. And so I must have gone to sleep then.
You had your first good night's sleep in God
Yes.
knows when.
And the next morning I woke up and looked around and everything looked so fresh. all the old furniture, the pencil, everything looked fresh and alive, and I could hear bird song outside. Wow, as if I'd never heard it before.
Wow.
Because the mind had become still, and there was simply the beautiful perception of everything, the sunlight coming through the curtains. Incredible. I said, well, I'd never seen that before. And
sounds like a drug trip.
well, later on, people tell me, they ask me, is that like acid? Because some people take acid and they say, oh, we experienced that when we took acid, they told me many times, until finally, I'll tell you in confidence, finally I tried acid just for once because I wanted...
Telling me in confidence here? Okay, good, go ahead.
I tried it just once, just to see...
If it was the same thing?
Yes.
Yeah?
It's not quite the same thing because what I experienced was much more subtle and beautiful. The acid I experienced as almost a violent thing, where violently the perceptions, sense perceptions, become so magnified that there was no room for thinking anymore. But I could see why people say, why for some people it's a glimpse of what it means to perceive the world without this continuous interference of mental noise.
Yeah.
But I
your
wouldn't
trip without acid was better.
Much better.
Yeah.
Oh, I was...
Well, part of what you're describing is what I came close to that when I decided to go outside without naming things or labeling things, is what I was describing earlier, walking through the park, walking around, you know, my house, which is like a park, and everything was like vibrating, and it was the colors and everything. The sense perception was very different because I wasn't in my mind thinking about it. I was just there to experience it. So that's how you get to that place.
That's right. So when you're no longer there when you walk through your garden in that or wherever in nature.
You're not naming every flower.
You're not naming, and also you're not carrying the burden of a heavy me, a personality, a person with its problems, with its past, with its future. You're not
thinking about anything.
So you are basically, you become a conscious presence perceiving the beauty around you.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Well, okay, we do have an email now from Kathy in Delta, Colorado. Is that where you're? Well, no, she can't talk. It's an email. How do I shed the years, or rather decades, of conditioning and distractions, sickness, relationships, work, in order to hear and feel the moments of stillness, which is what we're just talking about?
Yes. The good thing is you don't need years and years to undo years and years of conditioning. Because
do it in an instant.
Yes, only now.
Only now.
So it's the access point is the present moment. The present moment is the point of power to enter the new state of consciousness. So we need to learn how to find in our daily life, as often as possible, this point of power of the present moment. Because if we don't, we get continuously dragged along by the old conditioning of the mind, all the old thought processes, all the old reactions, and so on. So there are many little things you can do to access the power of the present moment. For example, a very simple thing, ask yourself, am I still breathing? Now, what does that mean? How to find out if you're still breathing, your attention needs to move from the thinking into here. And you suddenly feel the air flowing into your body and out of your body. Yes, I'm breathing. At that moment, you've entered the state of presence. Even if it's only 5 seconds, you've entered that, you've become present.
In the moment.
In that moment. So another thing I suggest is when you do habitual everyday motions like washing your hands or walking across the room or walking down the stairs or the slightest thing, taking a cup out of the cupboard, do it consciously, do it being present of the feel, for example, you wash your hands, feel the water, smell the soap.
We have this in one of the workbook exercises online, yes.
Sense perceptions, becoming acutely conscious of sense perceptions, which means looking, hearing, touching, if also, brings you into the present moment.
How is that going to help me? Because I started doing that, going up the stairs. I was going 1 foot on the stairs. There's another foot on the stairs. There's another foot. Okay, I'm at the top of the stairs now. I was present walking up the stairs. What does that do for me, Eckhart?
Were you present?
Yeah, I think I was. There's a foot, there's a foot, there's a foot, there's a foot on the stair. I'm just there.
Okay.
The movement of what, feeling the motion of my body and
Yes.
how many parts of my body have to move to get me up the stairs.
Yes.
And, you know, oh, I used my, thigh muscle there. Yeah.
Yes.
I used the back of the leg.
Good.
My ankles
Okay.
move. Yeah,
That was presence. I wasn't sure from the way you said. I thought you were repeating mentally, here's one step and here's another step, but you were not.
No, I was not.
No.
I was feeling every part of what
Yes.
it took to get me up the stairs.
Yes.
Yes.
So now the mind says, what's the point in that?
Yes, the mind then said, okay, now you were present getting up the stairs.
And the
now
mind
what?
says, I've got more important things to think about.
Yes, it did. Mind said, now what did that do you?
Now, to the mind, that kind of thing is completely meaningless because you're inviting a different state of consciousness into your life, which the mind cannot understand. But this is how you bring in awareness. This is the end of the old conditioning.
Yes.
And you bring in a consciousness that is totally fresh and new, that comes out of the present moment. And the more you bring those moments of presence into your life, the more your old conditioning becomes eroded gradually.
I see. So learning to do it with washing your hands. I just got
Simple
this.
things.
Well, this is good. This class is good for me. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I got it now. Just learning to do the simple things begins to retrain your mind.
Yes. And another thing is most simple things that you do, which actually fill up most persons' everyday life, because the whole day consists of simple things that you have to do.
Right.
They're all relatively simple.
Right.
And the way most people live is that everything you do is a means to an end. And the end is where you want to get to, the next moment.
Right. So you're never thinking about the moment.
No, because you want to get to the next one. You're washing your hand in order to already do that. Or you're making, while you're making a cup of coffee, we really want to be drinking it.
Yeah. John Kabat-Zinn says in his book, Coming to Our Senses, that most people, every morning, people take a shower, they bathe or something, but most people are in the shower, but they never actually get to experience a shower because they're thinking they're already in the office.
Yes.
They're already in the office.
And then everything you do is a means to an end. The end is always the next moment in the future, which never arrives, because all you ever have in life is the present moment.
Present moment. So you're constantly frustrated,
Yes.
creating anxiety for yourself and stress because you can't just be present now.
And the power can only flow into your life when you are present completely, totally with what you're doing now. And this is why most people's lives do not have this power, because they're always living for the next thing, so they devalue the present moment.
Got it.
And so
that's why walking up the stairs, being with the stairs, teaches you how to be present with other things.
Yes, and then gradually you can be present with, even when you are with other human beings, you can be totally present in whatever work you do, so that the work is not a means to an end, but you're totally there with what you do, your attention.
Well, I see Cinda from Oregon has been waiting to talk to us. Cinda, hi, from Oregon. What's your question?
Hello, Oprah. Hello, Eckhart.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Hey, I am so grateful for this opportunity to have Eckhart answer my question. Thank you for having me participate in this. And Eckhart, I need you to know that I am grateful that when you tried acid, that you preferred enlightenment more than that, because my children are upstairs listening in on this.
Because he was going to say, and I interrupted him, you were saying I don't recommend it.
No, I don't.
Why?
Because you will always fall back. You always fall back to the old state of consciousness, and it's almost, I experienced as almost a violent thing being done to me.
Okay, good. I wanted to say that for the children upstairs, Cinda.
Yeah, thank you, Oprah.
Okay, your question.
Well, my question is this, and first of all, I also want to tell Eckhart that his words in his book have moved me to my core, and I am a new person because of it, and not only because of my internal changes, but the way that I am in the world that I live, and I am so grateful for that. Thank you, Eckhart. I want to ask a question. It's something that we've already talked about a little bit tonight, but I feel it's important enough to bring up again. And I believe that the way that Eckhart answers this question might just be the catalyst to change that we need in order to save our planet and ourselves. On pages 20 and 21 in the book, you talk about in an ever-changing world or an ever-changing environment, a species needs to either adapt or they will die out. And then you go on to say, and I quote, that humanity is now faced with a stark choice, evolve or die. My question to you is this. When you say evolve or die, do you mean that literally, and it sounds like you might, or do you mean that metaphorically, which I hope?
Evolve or die refers to humanity as a whole, whether humanity survives as a species. Even if humanity did not survive as a species, no gain in consciousness is ever lost within the totality of consciousness. So the fact that we are here and consciousness, which is really all that exists, we are only forms that come out of consciousness, and consciousness is the evolutionary process of the universe. And we are here together as part of this evolution of consciousness, which comes through the human form. Consciousness can use and does use millions and billions of other forms, and evolves through that. Out of the unmanifested. In the unmanifested, consciousness is already perfect, or God, you could say. Timeless, perfect, eternal, no change. And then you have this so-called manifested dimension, which some ancient teachers have described as a kind of dream, which is what it is. But for some reason, consciousness wants to come into this world of form. And in this world of form, it evolves. So one could say that gradually, more and more, God, which is another word for consciousness, God comes into this world of form gradually, emerges. And God comes through you, God comes through me, God comes through you. Gradually, more and more, the density of form lessens, and this is what's happening. And so, even if humanity didn't make it, consciousness would, the gain in consciousness that has already been achieved by those human beings who have become conscious would make consciousness express itself much more easily through some other form, because ultimately we are not the form, we are not the body that we see. Humanity, you are not the form that is sitting there. In essence, you are beyond, you are the formless consciousness itself.
You're the stillness.
Temporarily assuming this particular form. And of course, the form eventually is going to dissolve anyway, because then consciousness moves on. Consciousness is continuous evolution, continuous metamorphosis. It's a wonderful process. So there's nothing to be scared of, because ultimately, when I say evolve or die, I'm only speaking of humanity as a species. But ultimately, nothing dies. It's only a transformation of consciousness, a transformation of form.
A transformation of
form.
Yeah.
So there is no death, ultimately.
But you do mean the end of our human species as we know it.
Yes, that is a possibility, but the fact that we are here tonight should give us hope and confidence that humanity is going to make it, because this is growing, and not just this teaching, there are other spiritual, alive spiritual teachings. There is an enormous awakening happening on the planet. So nobody knows, I don't know the answer whether humanity is going to make it, but I do feel confident now, more so perhaps than before, that we are going to make it.
Well, yes, because that's one of my favorite quotes too, Cinda, that a significant portion of the Earth's population will soon recognize, if they haven't already done so, that humanity is now faced with a stark choice, evolve or die. Thank you for raising that question in such a beautiful way, Cinda.
Thank you, Oprah. Thank you, Eckhart.
Thanks for joining us. Casey in Asheville, North Carolina is on Skype and has a question also for Eckhart about the secret. Casey?
Hi, Oprah. Hi, Mr. Tolle. I was debating about whether to read this book because it looked very deep to me, to be honest. And I have a 1-year-old and I hang out with her all day and I didn't know if I was ready for it. But Oprah, when I saw your show on The Secret and the Bubble Man and all that good stuff, I thought I have got to read that book because you talked about a new earth so much in that show. So my question is this. When I put out into the universe, when I ask God for things, for hopes and dreams and material things, and a lot of times I get them, those material things, I think they may be coming from the ego. And I just wonder, Mr. Tolle, is that wrong?
Okay, well, it's not wrong. You can always easily recognize that something is coming from ego because when you get it, it doesn't satisfy you. That's always a sign that it's coming from ego. It may satisfy you for a little while, and then it's something, oh, I need more, I need something else. So that's a good learning process. You can manifest things, and if you see, oh, that's not satisfying, that must have been the ego. So there's nothing wrong with manifesting things. The only illusion would be to expect things to provide some ultimate satisfaction in your life. Things can't do that. The world of form can't ultimately satisfy you. You can enjoy the world of form, but the true satisfaction doesn't come from there. The world can't do that. The world can't make you happy. Things cannot give you happiness. Right. Because happiness comes from a deeper place within you that you can only access in the present moment. So it's fine to, we live in the world of things. Why not manifest things? It's part of the game of, in this life, the game of form. But if you expect some kind of satisfaction, then you'll always be frustrated.
Which is going to be, yeah, I think we get into that a lot in chapter 3.
Yes.
And chapter 2 and chapter 3.
Oh,
not allowing yourself, oh, love chapter 2, chapter 3.
So good.
Not allowing yourself to be defined by the things, to be in the world and not of it is how I describe it. To not allow, to have things, you know, I have lots of beautiful things and I love beautiful things. And later on in one of the chapters, he talks about when you say that you're not defined by things, what happens to you if you were to lose any of those things. The depth of your, you know, grieving or sorrow or, you know, so-called suffering determines how attached you were to those things.
Yes, and for many
people,
say
it doesn't matter to me until somebody steals your car.
That's right.
Yeah.
And for many people, that's a very important lesson. When suddenly they do lose something, it can be a wonderful spiritual lesson, and then perhaps you suffer, and then your attachment gets broken, and suddenly you go beyond the attachment. So there have been people who've lost everything, and suddenly become free of the ego because the ego had nothing left to identify with. So this can happen. And another important thing to mention with regard to manifestation is the basis for your life is the present moment. You need to, first of all, the very basis for everything is to come to an acceptance of this moment as it is. Gratitude is part of that. Of course, we'll be talking about that in more detail. So that there's no neediness when you manifest. The neediness that there's dissatisfaction, for example, in your life. If there's dissatisfaction, that is not a good place, not a good starting point for changing your life. The ego may tell you that, but it isn't. You need to find a place of acceptance, which is...
Wow, that's powerful.
No matter where you are, come to terms and become friendly with the present moment. Because if you do not become friendly with the present moment, you're not friendly with life. If you're not, because life is only now. If you're not friendly with life, life cannot support you.
But did you just say that being in a place of being dissatisfied is not a good time or place to change?
It's first, you can see the totality of the situation. Let's say, I use the example in The Power of Now, you're stuck in the mud. You're walking somewhere and suddenly you get deep into the mud up to your knees.
Right.
Now, you wouldn't say, okay, I'm satisfied with this situation. You can't be satisfied with this situation, and you know that you need to get out. But you say, okay, here I am stuck in the mud, and I need to get out. There is no
cursing the
negative
mud.
reaction.
Yeah, there's no
cursing.
Damn this mud!
Yes.
Yeah.
Or struggle against.
Yeah.
Because if you struggle against, you get in deeper.
You're just going to get more mud on you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, very important, perhaps one of the key things here in this or any spiritual teaching is the question that you need to ask yourself as much as possible. You can even put it on your bathroom mirror or some other places where you often look. And that question is, what is my relationship with the present moment? And to become very conscious of that. And then you find out, then you of course need to become alert. Okay, what's my relationship with this moment? Is there negativity, in which case I'm fighting, I'm making the present moment into an enemy.
Yeah, and what you say is what you resist persists.
Yes.
So you must make peace with the moment.
Yes.
Doesn't mean you have to approve the situation.
No.
But you must make peace with the moment in order to get yourself out of it.
Yes.
Because resisting is only going to cause more of it.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's absolutely vital. So peace with what is, the isness of this moment is already as it always already is as it is. The ego doesn't understand that, but you can't really argue with what is because it already is.
So you must accept whatever it is first before you can begin to change it. That's what you're saying.
Yes,
there must be acceptance.
Acceptance of what is first. Then action comes out of the acceptance. It no longer comes out of resistance, which is a totally different energy flows into what you do when it comes out of an acceptance of this is what is, and then action happens. That is actually empowered by life itself.
Well, I think that explained it, Casey. Thank you.
I think so too. Thank you so much. That's amazing.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to go back to spirituality and religion for a few moments in the few moments we have remaining, because I know that's still such a major issue with so many of you. And you say on page 17 that the more you make your thoughts or beliefs into your identity, the more cut off you are from the spiritual dimension within yourself. And you also say on page 18, how spiritual you are has nothing to do with what you believe, but everything to do with your state of consciousness.
Yes. How spiritual you are means how present are you at this moment? Are you in your thoughts, or are you there as the awareness behind your thoughts?
Which is your spirit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stillness. So often in newspapers and the media, they always ask, well, what do you believe in? That is not an important question, what I believe in. The important question is, are you present at this moment? Not what your belief structures are.
I think people want to know what you believe so that they can label it and decide whether they're going to like you, accept you, or not.
Yes. And they want to know, do you believe the same thing that I believe? Because if you don't, you're my enemy.
Yeah. And you're laughing at that, okay.
Well, it's mad. It's better to laugh at madness.
Yes. I just wanted to mention this person, Maria from Doha, Qatar. I just wanted to say Doha, Qatar. Yes.
In what country?
Qatar.
Qatar, okay.
Qatar.
Qatar.
Okay. She says, do you think that people are ready and willing to set aside time to be quiet each day? Is this possible in a global sense? Would anyone who thinks their life is fine be willing to waste time just sitting in order to raise their consciousness level?
Well, I would change the question a little bit to make it more vital and more relevant, is ask, am I ready? The only question you really need to answer is, am I ready to do this? You don't need to know whether other people are ready to do it. Only you can have the answer, am I ready to be still?
Very good, Ms. Qatar. Am I ready?
That's the vital question, and only you can answer that. I can't answer that. Are you ready, or are you so fascinated by the things of this world and your mind that perhaps you need to pursue those things for a few more years until you suffer a bit more, and then you're ready.
Well, yes. When we were doing rehearsal for this yesterday, we were up on Skype, and someone said, "I'm 28 years old, and I don't think I need to be awakened. So what can I get from this book?" I go, "Don't waste your time. Go read another book."
Yes.
Yeah. You don't think you need to be awakened, then?
No, that's right. So the time is not yet there for everybody, and that's fine too.
What about the people who are struggling, particularly in this first chapter with the book?
The first chapter is a little bit more conceptual than the other chapters and less practical. I wanted to give a general context for where the book fits into the general context of the spirituality on the planet, the transformation of consciousness on the planet. So just read through. There are already very important pointers in the first chapter, if you can see them, that will run through the whole book, presence and so on. Just carry on, but not only the first chapter. Anywhere in the book, don't expect to immediately understand everything. That's not necessary. And besides, understanding the book is not the essential thing, it's secondary. The first thing is to experience the truth of it. Rather than conceptual understanding, the essence of what's in the book, but in any case, cannot be understood conceptually. For example, presence. People say, "Can you explain to me what presence is?" I've already given a few pointers. It's pointless to go beyond that and give further definitions. You can only know what presence is by being present. You must have at least a glimpse of presence, and this is why it's not understanding that's the essence. So when you don't understand, just read on. It's a process. Reading this book is a process.
Yes. And this book, as you say, again, as I said in the beginning, this isn't about creating more information for you to believe in.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And you don't want to be anybody's guru.
No. No. So it's not through your mind, really, that you can get it. And anybody who finds this book meaningful, and this is the important thing, is already awakening. If you're not awakening already, this book will be completely meaningless, or any other truly alive spiritual book will be meaningless. You won't understand it, or you say, "There's not much there, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me." If it does make sense, and especially if you feel something from within responding, and you say, "Wow, yeah."
Well, I think also, too, for all of you who've joined us, there are a lot of people who are expressing they're getting it, they're awakening, they're feeling more alive and excited, and then you want to go share it with somebody else who perhaps hasn't read the book, doesn't feel the same as you, and then they feel frustrated.
Yes.
And I guess you would say the same thing as you say to the woman in Qatar, just worry about yourself.
Yes. And so if other...
Concern yourself with yourself.
That's right. And if friends or relatives say, "It doesn't make sense to me," that's fine. Perhaps in a few years' time they'll be ready. We don't know. So it's to accept that it's not yet for everybody.
Accept it first.
Accept.
Accept.
Don't demand that, or don't make it into an ideology and then try to convince people that they must be present.
Right. I got it. Before we say goodbye, I want to thank you for being with me, all of you out there. This is just the most exciting thing I have ever done, being able to talk with you all and share this kind of information that allows all of us to get closer to who we really are, so that we can honor our life's purpose and calling here while we're on Earth. And we'll be here next Monday again at 8 p.m. Central. If you want to experience this first class again, or tell a friend who missed it, our webcast will be available on demand tomorrow for free here at Oprah.com. You'll also be able to update your workbook and get started on Chapter 2. And if you want to download the podcasts of this class, you can do that too at Oprah.com and at iTunes. Next week, woo! Moving out of the conceptual Chapter 1 into the good stuff.
Yes.
Moving on, the next week we'll be talking about the ego. Wow. We'll see you next Monday night. Thank you, Eckhart.
Thank you.
And thank you so much to all of you around the world. Good night.
Good night.
Good morning.